a modest town to the east, and a small village to the west, and a road connecting the two passing through Industriville, it is time, for the sake of tourism, to build an inn in Industriville. The first step, of course, having picked out the site, is to actually start the process of A, sorting out how much land I'm going to need, and B, making sure that the land that I have is suitable for the construction of the inn. That will involve a bit of site clearing. It's not the fastest process, site clearing. As I said, the first thing is to set up the frame. Make sure I have sorted out where the inn is going to go. And yes, light up the work area so I don't have to deal with creepers, zombies, et al. While I'm building the inn. I'm now working on the back and the side to get the rest of the frame for the basement of the inn. This is where I had the most ground to clear, simply because so much of this area was below ground level. And yes, I did have to fight off the odd enemy here or there. At this point, I've got the frame mostly complete. And this section really is pure ground clearing, as well as leveling a small area that is actually underneath the basement, so that I don't have a clear space for mobs to spawn. And yes, I did have to travel back and forth to the warehouse more than a few times during the process of building this inn. This is a huge structure, the biggest in Industriville to date. Though that is a status it may not hold for that long. There are other civic structures that could legitimately be argued to require more space than this inn. But at this point, I've got the frame sorted out. I've laid out a couple of additional beams on the floor, as well as some additional support beams in the walls. In addition to providing additional structural support for the inn, they also provide more of a reference point for later aspects of the inn's construction. Now I've got the floor laid out, and now I am building the back and side walls. I'm not going to build the front wall yet. I want to make sure I get the interior right before I actually build up the front wall. Now here's my staircase, and I actually had to move it one block back because of an issue with the initial siding. But at this point, I have my staircase. And you can actually see that I'm starting to place the ceiling for the basement. And I'm opting to go with one block for the ceiling and then a different style of wood for the floor above. The floor above will, for the record, be the main floor. But I've built up four storerooms, four modest storerooms in the basement. These will be for storage of food, linens, etc., etc. Things that are needed for an inn to function. Now to lay out the ceiling, as well as the interior walls, making sure I have a place for the internal vertical beams to come through. And of course, sorting out the walls and the interior lighting for the basement of the inn. And now I'm working on the rest of the ceiling. I'm also starting to clear out a little bit of space for the floor above. so that I actually have room to work around, and so that the staircase I built can actually be used to a degree. Now, here is most of the rest of the basement ceiling and the rest of the interior walls. And I've started also building the front wall in the vicinity of the staircase, and then in the vicinity of the rooms. Et voila! The basement is done, and now I can start the process of clearing the land for the first floor. Fortunately, there's not as much land that needs to be cleared for the first floor as compared to the basement. And yes, that is me also fixing up the horizontal beam to allow the vertical beams through. And here is the floor for the main floor. And yes, I did opt for 2 different styles of wood. Straight wooden planks for the ceiling, but parquet for the floor. And now that I've got a basic layout for the first floor, it's time to finish the process of clearing out the space where the inn will go. And yes, I did have to build some dirt scaffolding so that I could get to where I needed to go. I also opted to light up a respectable portion of the hill behind the under construction inn. That's to prevent mobs from spawning there and making their way onto the construction site or into the inn, or otherwise interfering with goings on in Industriville. Now that I've got the space cleared out and a bit of the surrounding area lit up, it's actually time to start building the main floor. And I've opted to place the entrance a bit off center, and now you can see the road and a bit of a landing for the road that actually leads to the front door of the inn. And now that I've got the road to the inn sorted out, and after switching up the materials in my inventory, remember, my inventory is somewhat limited, and this inn requires more materials than I can reasonably hold at one time. But now I am back. I'm building the staircase up, but rather than building a second floor directly on top of this first floor, I'm actually going to basically build a loop around after killing zombie, and basically go up 2 flights of stairs to get to the sleeping area. And that is the last staircase for the inn that I just placed there. And that corner that I marked off there is actually designed to be the reception. And yes, I know I missed a zombie. Now, I've gotten frustrated at the zombie thing, so I opted to build a bit of a wall to block off part of the hill behind the inn. This, again, is to reduce the risk of mobs spawning inside Industriville proper. Though it also counts as a minor expansion of the city. And now I've placed a desk and a chair for reception. And now I'm working on the walls. And I've actually opted for glass panes for most of the front wall. And that's just to make the lobby area nice and airy. And here I am bringing the rear wall up the rest of the way, as well as sorting out the walls around the staircase. And keep in mind, I'm going glass on the front wall. I'm also going glass on this connecting walkway between the 2 flights of stairs overlooking the main lobby. And now I've got the site for the 3rd floor, the sleeping area, and sorting out the lighting. As much as I hate to leave the inn half finished like this, there are 2 concerns that force me to set it aside for the time being. The first is the lack of andesite. I actually ran dangerously short of andesite in the construction process, and I know I'm going to need more of it, so yeah, what's done is done for now, and they'll have to gather more resources before I can actually finish the inn. The other thing is, my food situation is not so good. I'm actually having some serious problems with the food situation. Thankfully, I do have some options that just might help me out a bit with the food. First things first, I did manage to collect some meat in my explorations. Enough to make some hot dogs. I think I have a pot. Yes, I do. Good. So let me go ahead and take the pot, the bread, and the pork chops, and I get these hot dogs. And then the second meat-based food item is the hamburger, and that requires a skillet and toast. So let's take the skillet, the half stack of toast, and the raw beef gives me hamburgers. Really good for hunger. And as for something a bit more sustainable for the time being, all I have to do is combine 2 pieces of toast and I get this toast sandwich. It's about the same in terms of hunger replenishment as the hot dogs. I just have a bit easier access to them because I have substantial stocks of wheat. Let's just say that. Now, 4 types of food won't necessarily be enough. Fortunately, I do have a couple of additional options that I'm still working my way towards sustainability on. In fact, these 2 are the reasons why I've opted to set up my crossbreeding as I did. Speaking of which, I should probably go ahead and set up another round of crossbreeding on the spice leaves. And also check the rice that I've crossbred. There we go. 878. So we're not that far with respect to the rice from the 10-10-10 that I need to actually transplant it into the Industriville farms. I should also point out that I have made a slight modification to the chest in here. This side here, these 4 chests here, will be used exclusively for seeds that are produced in the crossbreeding process. Over here, I have foodstuffs, more foodstuffs, and as before, the cooking equipment. But this chest now contains seeds that I haven't crossbred or cannot crossbreed. Though I did have to move the pecans over to one of the barrels to make room. There we go. Got a little bit more rice. Now I'm going to start by making a veggie stir fry. And let me think here. It actually looks like the rice is going to be the limiting factor. So let me double check. So it looks like I need onions, beans, bell peppers, and carrots. So 8 bell peppers, 8 beans, 8 carrots, and it's a skillet that I need for that one. So let's get the skillet out, and lucky for me, it's shape independent, this recipe. Et voila! 8 veggie stir fries. Pretty respectable meal at this stage. Sure, the ingredients aren't yet sustainable enough to allow me to make it sustainable, but it will do for now. So now the second is the roast root veggie medley. And lucky for me, I have 8 spice leaves exactly. So it looks like 8 onions. While I'm at it, okay, it is a bakeware. So let me go ahead and grab that. 8 potatoes and 8 carrots. And combine these in the crafting table. Et voila. Not quite as good as the toast sandwich or the hot dog. Well, it may be useful later on. But for now, it is of somewhat limited utility. I'm actually going to go ahead and start using the toast sandwiches as my go-to meal. And I'm going to bring out the hatchet, make my way over here to the to-do list, and get rid of the better food item, because I now have better food. I don't yet have sustainable better food, but I will in due course. Once I get these crops crossbred and planted over, I'll be in pretty good shape on the food front. And maybe I'll finally be able to go more than a few days without worrying about what I'm going to eat.